Coming up next on the Wet Fly Swing podcast.
A real strong, mutual opinion of just about everyone here is that we've got these access to tremendous public waters and lands, and everyone has come together with that in my lifetime in Montana. As we've seen an influx of, wealthier landowners, the tide may be turning. And fortunately, we do have that law in the books now. It would have been more difficult to implement nowadays, but that's something that's just always been the attitude in Montana. And, it's the reason that a lot of people are here. And it's, one of the great things we offer.
That was Shaun Jeszenka providing a behind-the-scenes look at Montana's public access law. The Big Hole, the Beaverhead, and Big Browns today on The Swing.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today.
Hey, how you doing today? Thanks for stopping by the show. Want to share a big announcement we have right now. We are looking for a new account manager position with the Wet Fly Swing podcast right here. We're looking for somebody who's interested in digging into the good stuff we have going and engaging all the community here. So if you are interested or know somebody who might be interested and have some of those skills, you can reach out to me, Dave, at wetflyswing.com, and just let me know you're interested in that account manager role. You can also head directly right now to wetflyswing.com/manager. Manager will get you there. You can see the full scoop on that job, and you can actually apply right there on that page and check it out. Today's episode is sponsored by Stonefly Nets, who is putting quality before quantity with their handcrafted custom wood landing nets. When Ethan designs your net, it's his hope and goal to help you form lasting memories every time you're on the water. You can head over to wetflyswing.com/stonefly right now to get started. That's STONEFLY. You support this podcast by clicking through that link to Stonefly online. Today's episode is sponsored by Drifthook, who has pre-packed fly assortments for every stage of your fly fishing journey. Each kit is organized by species and includes instructional videos, easy to follow guides. Their fly shop quality flies are hand tied and inspected before being packed in these careful, durable packs. And I can tell you, these are sweet little fly boxes. Check them out right now. Drifthook, wetflyswing.com/DRIFTHOOK. Drifthook. Shaun Jeszenka takes us into Western Montana and frontier anglers. We dig into a few of the most well-known rivers in Montana and talk about how we fish them. And of course, I'm speaking of the Beaverhead and the Big Hole on top of some other ones that are out there. We break down some of the big hatches that you can be expecting if you're going to this area in the coming year. And we also find out where Shaun is heading out this winter. So this is a good background on frontier anglers and everything they have going there. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Here we go. Shaun Jeszenka from frontieranglers.com. How's it going, Shaun?
Doing well, Dave. How are you this morning?
Good. Yeah, thanks for taking a little time today to dig into some on Montana. We've obviously covered a lot of episodes around in and out of Montana. And I know southwestern Montana. I spent some time out there fishing, so I'm interested to dig back into a little bit on this. So we're going to talk about your history here with Frontier Anglers, kind of the guiding program, dig into some fishing to help people that might be going to that area this year. But before we get there, take us back to fly fishing. I'd like to start off at the start quickly. Tell us how you first got into fly fishing.
Well, I was fortunate enough to grow up on the Blackfoot River outside of Missoula, Montana as a kid. In fact, as I became old enough, I would just take my bike across an old trestle just on the lower end of the Blackfoot and spend almost every afternoon and day of the summer fishing, as well as outings with my grandfather to Rock Creek and other area rivers. I guess I ended up in this part of the state. I had family here as well, so I was real fortunate to be immersed in it as a pretty young kid.
So you've been out there for a long time. And so Rock Creek, we got the Blackfoot. There's a number of rivers in that area. We're going to talk about, just give us a primer on what is southwestern Montana. How much area, how far east does that go? Just roughly.
Southwest Montana, I think you could throw the Madison River in as well. We fish that a little bit, but primarily we're fishing the Jefferson River and its tributaries. The Beaverhead and the Big Hole rivers is where we spend the most of our time, and are kind of, I guess, the flagship blue ribbon rivers in this portion of the state. You can throw the Ruby in there as well, but I would defining Southwest Montana would be the Jefferson River drainage and primarily the Beaverhead and Big Hole.
Okay, perfect. So that helps us. So, and then remind everybody who's listening that doesn't know there. So like Rock Creek, what does that flow into?
Rock Creek comes into the Clark Fork about 20 miles to the west of Missoula. It's over the divide from us. So we don't really, I guess you could throw the Bitterroot is technically in southwest Montana, but they're on the other side of the divide from us. We're the drainage I'm talking about, and primarily we service at Frontier Anglers. We're in the uppermost headwaters of the Missouri River drainage. In fact, the uppermost portion of the Missouri River can be found in the Centennial Valley south of Dillon.
Nice. I want to dig into, for those people that are going to want to fish that area, part of Montana. You're out of Dillon. Frontier Anglers is a big company. I mean, you guys have been doing some good stuff over there because your name's popping around all over the place. And I want to talk about your guide program. But the Beaverhead is one of the rivers I want to dig into here. So describe, it's a tailwater. Take us to the Beaverhead and talk about how it's a little bit different maybe than some of the other rivers, or maybe what you really love about it.
Sure, Dave. The Beaverhead, the start of Beaverhead is where the outflow of Clark Canyon Reservoir south of Dillon, about 20 miles. The Beaverhead would be on the smaller side of floatable rivers out west. It's just a very fertile fishery, and when we get into a cycle of good water with good winter flows, I really haven't seen another river that produces the abundance and size of fish out west as the Beaverhead. We have some fluctuations here and there with flows, and the fishery will kind of rise and fall a little bit. But when things are clicking, it's one of the best out there.
Yes, and it's definitely well known. I haven't fished it. I've been out in that area, but that's one on the bucket list still. What is the time wise? Is it kind of normal thing as soon as the winter kind of kicks off and comes out into the early kind of late spring, summer is when things start heating up there?
Yeah, portions of the river from 7 miles below the dam at an access called Pipe Organ Bridge downstream is open year round. The upper 7 miles of the river is actually closed until the third Saturday in May. What that does is protect some spawning rainbows. We also see flows start to rise as irrigation demands happen in the month of May. And so it's a big day for us, the third Saturday in May, when that upper portion of the river opens.
Right. And then you guys are going strong, and you're going strong and through, as we're recording this, we're kind of into November. How's that look for the season? When does it kind of wrap up for you?
We're kind of there already. We did our last guide trips last weekend, and we've got winters here in Montana. It was 16 degrees this morning, so not a lot of folks going on float trips anymore for the rest of the season. We'll kick back off again, probably usually in March of next year.
Nice. And before we jump into on some of the fishing, I just want to take us back again to the Frontier Anglers, because that is a topic and a name that is around, you hear about a lot. So you came to own this thing in 2019. And before that, take us there. So did you have a fly shop even before this? And what were you doing before you actually purchased Frontier Anglers?
Prior to purchasing Frontier Anglers in January 2019, I had been a small outfitter, basically operating out of my house here in southwest Montana since 2000. I spent at the early stages. I started in as a guide in southwest Montana in 1990.
Oh, 1990, yeah. What was that like? So when you're starting in 1990, who were you with, or back then, or just kind of doing your own thing?
I actually worked for a number of people at that time. I spent most of the 90s. I worked for a lodge near Twin Bridges, just north of Dillon, called Crane Meadow Lodge, and fished. There's an abundance of water. We fished not only the Beaverhead, but the Big Hole, the Jefferson, the Ruby, the Madison. One of the reasons I'm here is there's just I think there's 225 miles of floatable water within an hour and a half of here.
Wow. Wow, that's huge. And what is and you guys are floating this, is it mainly like rafts or boats or a mix?
Yeah, we generally are fishing out of, most of the people in this part of the Montana are running some type of skiff boat. We tend to deal more with lower water than higher water. We put rafts in play later in the summer as the water falls, but just a variety of boats and whatnot, and a good combination of both wade and float fishing.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's a good mix. So, okay. And then Frontier Anglers, I mean, you probably saw that. I mean, you purchased it in 2019, but I'm sure you saw them along the way. What was the history there? Who was the original, do you know when that actually started up, the original owner?
Yeah. Tim Tollett, who's a friend of mine, originally opened Frontier Anglers in 1980. And Tim was a friend of mine, one of the first people I met when I moved to Southwest Montana from Missoula. And so I'd been a customer and, there for quite some time. And I joke with my customers now that if you'd have told me 25 years ago I would own Frontier Anglers, I would have told you were crazy. But here we are and things are going well.
Right. Yeah. And you guys, I mean, that explains it, part of it, right? Obviously, since 1980, that's a business that's been going a while. And you guys now focus on that area. Are you also doing some other programs? Are you still going outside of that, kind of like doing the hosted stuff or any of that sort of thing, travel?
We are, yeah. We're doing some hosted trips to Belize, the Bahamas. I hope to get back to some of my roots in Argentina, but the pandemic kind of put a stop to destination travel there for a couple of years. But we're jumping back in and hoping to do more and more as each year.
Perfect. Well, let's jump into the Beaverhead. Again, I would love to jump into all these rivers you guys fish, but we're probably going to have limited time here. So let's just start with the Beaverhead. This is one that's probably one of the most well-known rivers out there. It's this amazing tailwater. It's got big fish. If people are planning for this trip, are there certain times kind of during the year, the summer, when they should focus, or is it just good starting whenever the high water comes down until this time?
Well, there's not a runoff on the Beaverhead as a tailwater. It's actually almost the reverse of a freestone river. Once we start to get our better flows, that's when our best fishing is. Typically, the upper river opens the third Saturday in May, and we try to steer our clients to come somewhere between the third Saturday in May out through the month of August. Flows can decline again after Labor Day, but it's a short but sweet season compared to some fisheries, but it's pretty spectacular.
Wow. So that is, yeah. So you got the short season, and it's obviously Montana, so you get some weather there. And then during the off season, so now as you're wrapping things up, are you just kind of cleaning things up and then getting ready to do some hosted travel, or how do you keep yourself busy throughout the rest of the year out there?
We're taking bookings now every day. We do have an online store. Yeah, we're organizing our destination trips. Just the things you don't have time to do during the heat of the season.
Right. And I'm not even, obviously I've heard about Frontier. I don't even know, is there, as far as the store, is there a brick and mortar, like one store, multiple stores? Is that a program you guys have?
Yes, we do. We have a retail. Our retail location is in Dillon. It's one of the main locations in town. If you get off of Interstate 15 in Dillon, we're sitting right there. Pretty hard to miss us, actually.
Gotcha. Yeah. Of course, you got the thing. It's interesting because, there's a lot of changes, with the online. You probably see this as well. Frontier has made a great name for them. You guys, for yourselves. It's big. You've been out there a long time. I was talking to Joe Cermele recently from the Bent podcast, the Meat Eater crew. We had him on, and it kind of different subject. But he's talking about Field and Stream. How Field and Stream was this, they were great, the magazine, right? They still are out there, but they don't do a print magazine anymore. And I didn't realize, and he was kind of disappointed about that. But I kind of think of this as an analogy with all the fly shops, although fly shops aren't necessarily leaving, right, and going online. But you do see a lot of online fly shops. What's your take on, since you've been in it a little while, I guess you've owned it since 2019, but what's your take on changes in the fly shop? Have you seen a lot of changes, or do you think that's probably not going away?
I think there's always going to be a need for fly shops. People arrive in the area, and one of the things that we sell primarily, I believe, is service. People walk in, they may have some fishing knowledge, but they need to be pointed in the right direction, the right flies. We're full service from everything from we will shuttle folks on the river. We provide local information, possibly even in some smaller waters that people have never heard of before. Without a doubt, with the influx of, primarily online fly shops, their retail is not probably what it was, 25 years ago. However, it's remaining profitable, and we'll keep going from there.
Yep, obviously. No, and the shops are I think the fly shops are the heart. They probably always will be, the basically the backbone, the heart of fly fishing, which is amazing. So this is great. So, well, let's keep this Beaverhead going, get back into this. So if somebody was calling you and they're thinking, hey, I want to do a trip next summer, and they're kind of planning this, and they're saying, hey, okay, maybe I have a month in July or some time in July to go out there. What would you tell them if they were, getting ready to plan this? Is it walk and wade? Is that doable, DIY, or is it definitely better to get a guide? What's your take there?
There's plenty of access on the Beaverhead. The Beaverhead, I would say, because of the nature of it, it's a smaller, kind of faster, narrow willow-lined river. And most of the time when someone, even if they're a really, competent fisherman and they launch a boat in the Beaverhead, things are happening so quickly that, you come around a bend, and unless you have a plan about where you're going to cast before you get there, you're kind of behind a little bit in your reactions. And so most people on their initial outing on the Beaverhead don't have a tremendous amount of success. So I would encourage them to learn the river to hire a guide. There's a tremendous amount of knowledge as far as some of our terminal tackle and the type of structure and stuff you would want to fish in the river that might be a little bit different than most rivers that people fish.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. So, and like always, get a guide for at least, a day, or, what I mean? Whatever you can do, get somebody, because then that's going to save you a bunch of issues probably. I can imagine throwing in a drift boat, first time on a river, and all of a sudden it's floating by. You're probably missing a lot of water, missing some opportunities. So good. So basically you guys do the skiffs, and those skiffs are pretty amazing. We did a series on like drift boats a while back. So we kind of have a take on some of those skiffs, which are, low-sided, pretty amazing. What's the, well, just tell me that. Do you guys use a mixture of boats out there, or do you have one manufacturer you guys like to use?
No, there's a variety of them. Clackacraft, Hyde. I personally run an adipose flow skiff. And, they're all great boats. They work well. People can get in and out easily. The nature of the Beaverhead being a smaller river, a stand-up boat puts you just too close to them, in my opinion. You'll oftentimes run into pods of rising fish, and the distance between you and them is not much. And if you're standing, you're just going to spook more fish. Oh,
gotcha. So you're literally just floating, sitting the whole day, kind of just being stealthy.
Yes.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. So what would that look like? So as you're preparing for, somebody's preparing, they're going to be tied their flies, over the winter, getting prepared. What sort of flies should they be getting ready for if they're thinking, some of the hatches coming?
The primary hatches on the Beaverhead, the big one for us are PMDs, which, they begin to hatch in the latter part of June and will continue on even through August, and in some years, early September. Some of the PMDs on the Beaverhead will be a little bigger than people are used to encountering. They'll start out as an honest 14 and then slowly get a little smaller to where they're a 16, possibly even an 18 by August. Coinciding with them in the afternoons, it works out well, as we have some pretty tremendous yellow Sally hatches as well.
Nice. Yeah, yellow Sally. So, and do you guys get much of is there like a Stonefly action, all that?
There are a few goldens that come out on the Beaverhead. Like most tailwaters, they're not big. Not big. We don't have salmon flies there, but we do have a golden hatch that occurs for roughly 5-6 days in the latter part of June to early July, which can provide some good big dry fly fishing.
Okay. And what for you, is there what gets you fired up about fishing the Beaverhead? Is there a specific thing, or do you just kind of like it all in any time of the year?
Yeah, the one thing that we all look forward to after a summer of, running a lot of nymph rigs is typically around the 20th of August, we get a massive hatch of crane flies, which most people will see it one here or there on their local waterway flying. They look like a giant mosquito. Fortunately, they don't bite. They can be up to 2 inches long. The Beaverhead gets a bumper hatch of those. And so these normally snooty tailwater fish that are eating size 18 stuff in August will all of a sudden kind of just throw caution to the wind and eat big dries for a period of a week to 10 days in the latter part of August.
Oh, wow. So that's pretty cool. And what's the fly pattern? What's the dry fly you'd be using for that?
There are some specific patterns that they're kind of, because there's not a lot of crane fly fishing out there. There's not a lot of patterns available. I tied one myself that's somewhat of a Chernobyl type pattern. There are a handful of commercial patterns available, but really kind of a niche thing that is unique to the Beaverhead.
Okay, good. Yeah, and I haven't ever fished. I mean, obviously crane flies are everywhere, but yeah, I've never fished the crane fly hatch. That's really cool. And again, same thing though. Folks will be calling you up and they'll get that pattern from you. Do you guys do? Are you doing any like the YouTube stuff or any tying or anything out there online?
Yes, yeah, we've done a little bit of that. We're going to hope to expand on that a lot more. COVID kind of destroyed some plans to have some local tying classes and things like that. But we certainly will, hope to get more into that media side of things as well.
Okay. And Dillon, I'm not even sure if I've even been through Dillon, but are there other, so you guys are there, one of the big fly shops, are there other shops in and around kind of Dillon in that area?
Yes, we've got one other good-sized shop in town, friends of mine, Anderson and Platt, and then we've got several lodges in the area as well as a few independent outfitters.
Oh, yeah, right. And what are the... So what's one of the lodges, just so and these are lodges where you could actually go and literally be on, is it the Beaverhead, or what river would these be?
There are no lodges actually located on the Beaverhead, but there are a couple north of us about a half hour in the Ruby Valley, which fish, not only the Beaverhead, but some other rivers in the area, just like we do.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So it's like, and lakes, that obviously lakes are out there too. Is that a big focus for you guys?
Yeah, one of the big draws and the reason that I'm really have settled in this corner of Montana is there's virtually every type of fishery you would hope to encounter. We have spring creeks, still waters, freestones, tailwaters, mountain streams. If you went to a different body of water or section every day of the summer, I don't think you would cross paths in the same place twice.
Today's episode is sponsored by Zag.Fish, who was founded with the idea of finding ethical solutions to fly tying products and services. They've done just that by creating jobs for marginalized people, both in the U.S. and abroad. They've got everything covered. We've had a recent episode on with John Grosta, who talked about some of the great products they have with the fishing he does in Florida. With the Fairflies brushes. They've got the 5D brushes and their fly fur, which is pretty amazing. Tons of people are loving this stuff for its durability and the speed that allows you to tie flies. John talked about that on the podcast, and he said that just basically it's going to add on at least 15 to 20 minutes to each fly you tie if you're not using these brushes. Zag also has Wasatch custom angling tools in their satchel with over 50 custom heirloom tools that go along with your materials. So they are a true do-it-yourself company, and you got to check out Zag.Fish right now. If you want to, you can head over to wetflyswing.com/Zag, and you can get 20% off your first order by clicking through that link. Let them know you heard of them through this podcast, and you'll get that 20% discount right now. That's wetflyswing.com/Zag, Z-A-G. Okay, back to the show. Well, let's keep on the Beaverhead on that line again. So we got the crane fly, we got that hatch going on. But it sounds like you guys are doing some nymphing. I mean, let's go into that a little bit, because that's obviously a hot topic. Maybe describe your nymphing setup. Are you doing a similar thing throughout the year? What's that look like?
The bottom of the river is more of a smaller cobble type bottom, as opposed to the large bowling ball sized rocks you'll find in most streams. So somewhere around 15 years ago, we started to rig up our terminal tackle with what we would call a drop shot rig, where your weight is actually on the bottom, and then your two flies are located anywhere from 10 inches to 2 feet above that weight on tags off of your leader. Your leader is primarily just going to all be about 2x tippet. And what this does is it allows your flies to stay down in the zone where all these fish are in the Beaverhead. As you drift along, 1 minute you're fishing through an 18-inch deep riffle, which will suddenly drop off of a shelf into a 6-foot deep run or pool. This rig allows your flies to stay in contact and down in the zone right where the fish are the entire time. It's extremely effective, and it works on some other tailwater fisheries as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you're going down in the boat. So typically would you be rowing and you have two clients on the boat?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. You got somebody in the front and somebody in the back. So as you're doing that, you would just have them out. And is this an indicator rig? So would there be some type of a indicator on the rig?
Yeah, there would be an indicator approximately 6 feet above the top fly. The thing that strikes people as odd when they first fish with this setup is, as you're drifting down the river or you're wade fishing a hole, you'll see your indicator actually just do a bunch of micro ticks so you're in contact with the bottom and the weight that's on the bottom. One of the things that makes it a good rig as well is in a standard inline nymphing rig, where people typically put the weight above two flies. Tailwater fish, being fairly educated, they're pulling directly against the indicator. So as soon as there's any kind of resistance on the fly, it's immediately noticeable at the indicator.
Oh, right. Yeah. Because there's the other way, having the weight in the middle, it's that's affecting it. But with this, when they even touch it, you're seeing that every little thing.
Exactly.
Do you ever see that? I mean, it's moving all the time, or do you get into slower areas where you can actually slow the thing down quite a bit?
Yes, you certainly can. And one of the great things about the Beaverhead, which I think is unique to a lot of other trout streams as well, is people who float it for the first time are just in awe as they're floating down the river and they look over the side at all the fish they're passing and seeing. And there's a tremendous number of opportunities to get out of the boat and sight fish to large fish as well. There's just about any hole on the river you can pull over and immediately locate and see fish and then begin fishing to them.
Oh, cool. So you're floating down, so you know these areas where you can actually get out. And then when you get out, when you're sight fishing, are you talking sight fishing more like with dries and things like that?
Yeah, they're the dry fly opportunities. You might also find fish that you can see in 18 inches of water that are nymphing, and you may have to make some, a dry dropper rig, even a specific shallow water nymphing rig. Certainly fish when they're coming up, notice those, we're throwing dries at them, but it's just a real unique opportunity to see large fish like that and be able to sight fish to them. It's one of the main draws of the river.
Man, and like you said, these are fish that are, 20 inches is not uncommon to get like 20-inch brown.
Yeah, 20 inches aren't uncommon at all. I mean, you may not actually hook them, but it's not uncommon to sight fish to fish that are 22 to 24 inches.
The 22, 24. And then you have some rainbows there's some rainbows that are decent size as well.
Yeah, the rainbows tend to be on the larger size actually. In fact, I would think conservatively they would be run 18 to 19 inches in the upper portion of the river.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you got monster rainbows and monster browns and then throughout the year. So you're doing the nymphing. It sounds like probably, if you have somebody new that hasn't done this before, maybe they're even kind of newer to fly fishing. Is this something pretty easy to get them going? Are they doing much casting? Because I'd imagine you got weight. That's not the easiest thing to cast either, right?
Yeah, we've kind of refined it to where, using, rods we prefer or something around like a 9.5 foot 6 weight. A lot of times you're not actually aerializing the cast with a standard cast, and people just roll cast kind of quartering back out of the boat, as well as when you're out wade fishing, kind of allow it to go downstream, allow the wade to load with the current, and then swing it back up. And that's the most productive way to really nymph any tailwater, and it works extremely well in the Beaverhead.
Okay, and then so you got the nymphing. Are you guys also doing? So if you have a hatch, you're hitting that. Are you also doing any like streamers, anything like that? Is that a popular thing in the fishery?
Yes, it is. We had actually real good streamer fishing this last season, and so depending upon a lot of times the way a day will play out is you've had a great day of fishing. Okay, let's try to catch the fish on our terms. And if you end up with some clouds, you throw a streamer, or you can throw an attractor dry and get a few more fish on some great takes, and just kind of icing on the cake at the end of a good day.
This is great. All right. So this is the Beaverhead. This is one definitely you want to hit. It sounds like it's kind of a little smaller and faster. You got to have a boat because of the willows. So definitely checking in with you guys on a guide would be good. What about the other river? We mentioned, so the Big Hole, that's another big name. Talking about the Big Hole, how is the Big Hole different from the Beaverhead?
The Big Hole is a classic Western freestone river. Once the snowmelt gone, flows tend to recede. But it also, what it has that's synonymous with big Western rivers, it's got an amazing salmon fly hatch. Everybody wants to hit the salmon fly hatch. If we knew exactly what day that was going to be, we could probably double our rates and we'll be glad to pay it. But it has salmon flies. It has several other species of stoneflies, mayflies, caddis. Also sits in some of the most beautiful scenery probably in the Western United States. So it and the Beaverhead complement each other really well. One is, the finesse tailwater, and the other is this beautiful freestone. And oftentimes people who fish a multitude of days in the summer will want to do a couple days here and a couple days there.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So that would be maybe even the better thing to do if somebody has maybe a few days or even a week to come in and say, hey, we're going to hit the Beaverhead here for a couple days, head over to the Big Hole. And what is the salmon fly? So the range, it is always tough to say it's this range, but is it more of a June thing out there?
Yeah, they tend to come off a little earlier than some of the rivers in Montana. We're typically start looking for salmon flies anywhere around the 12th of June, and they could be around anywhere to the 20th to 22nd of June as well. But usually during that 10-day window is primarily when it happens.
Yeah, and when they're hot, when they're on the surface, what's the fly you usually throw on there?
I've gone to water walkers a lot lately in the last couple of years. Also, just standard chubby Chernobyls. When they're out and the fish are on them, it's pretty easy going. Big hole fish tend to, when they want to eat on top, they tend to be pretty voracious. When they don't, they can be hard to bring up. But when it's on, it's as good as anywhere.
Okay, and I'll put the water walker. We'll see if we can track down either maybe a video of that fly if there's a tying video. Is that one of your own, or is that something that's pretty common out there?
No, it's not actually. It's the water docker or the water walker, I believe, is a Will Dorn fly out of Jackson Hole and become popular around the West. I think the reason that it has gained in popularity is these fish get more pressure. It rides really, really low. It's not high profile like, let's say, a chubby Chernobyl, where I think fish are starting to see those big white fluffy wings. They certainly will eat them when they're being aggressive. But the water walker, I fish them quite often. I'll fish a two-fly rig, and I'll have the bigger, more visible chubby Chernobyl at the end, and then maybe a less visible, more flush floating pattern on near the angler up the leader. And so you're kind of covering a bigger swath along the bank as well with that two-fly rig.
Oh, good. Yeah. So then that is a nice one. So you can cover a little bit of both. And out there, same thing. I mean, you guys, if nymphing is pretty common throughout the year on the big hole as well.
Yeah, we do. There's certainly there are days, in bright sunny days in July where you'll end up doing some nymphing. But the big draw for us on the big hole is certainly, dry fly fishing, dry dropper fishing, as well as some just tremendous streamer fishing from early in the season. April and May and early June can be some of the best out west.
Gotcha. Okay. And so let's keep going around this now that we're on the track. So we got the Beaverhead, and you mentioned a few of these at the start. The big hole, the Ruby is another one. What's take us to the Ruby a little bit? How is that one? Are you kind of covering all these throughout the whole summer?
Yeah, the Ruby actually is a tremendous amount of the Ruby River is difficult to access. Most of the public access on the river is in the upper 8 miles from the dam near the small town of Alder, Montana. As you go downstream towards Twin Bridges, where the Ruby combines with the Beaverhead at that point, it's not very good public access at all. Using the Montana Stream Access Law, you can certainly jump off of a county road bridge as long as you stay within the high water marks. Mm-hmm. But it's difficult to access in lower reaches, some near the dam. And it's essentially just a smaller version of the Beaverhead is what it is. Both, the character of the water and the hatches and everything. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And so there's 3, and then let's round this off. What are the other rivers? Just remind us again, the rivers you guys cover during the year.
So the combination of the Ruby, the Beaverhead, and the Big Hole is the Jefferson River. The Ruby comes into the Beaverhead a couple miles above its confluence with the Big Hole, forming the Jefferson near the town of Twin Bridges, Montana, which is about 25 miles north of us. The Jefferson tends to be a little bit of a seasonal river. It can, suffer some from water drawdown in late summer. Temperatures can warm, but if conditions are right on the Jefferson, it's a tremendous fishery as well, with some of the hardest pulling rainbows that I've really seen anywhere in Montana.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay, good. So then that is throughout the year. I mean, those are the 3 that are your big ones, and then in the Jefferson Basin. You mentioned the Montana Access, which is really an interesting, I guess, law that you guys have in Montana. That's pretty unique. Do you know much about that? I mean, has that always been there? Because that seems pretty amazing for people that are anglers out there.
Yeah, it was in 1974 is when Montana first gained the stream access law was implemented, and it allows anglers if they can access a river at a county road bridge, a fishing access, or a variety of other ways where there's a public easement, you're allowed to float, wade, and move up and down the river within what's called the ordinary high water marks, which are usually pretty easily definable. To someone with a trained eye. And it really is probably, it liberalized stream access out west. And I think other states have followed suit. I know there's some stuff going on in Utah trying to transition that way, but having lived with it my entire life, I can't imagine life without it, such as, conditions that exist in Wyoming or Colorado.
Yeah. That seems to be that's the amazing thing, is that you've only known that, at least in your home state. But I mean, there's a lot of states that would be like, wow, that would be a really cool thing to have. Why do you think, why do you think they have it and a lot of states don't? Why do you have any idea? Is that just, I mean, obviously Montana is one of the fishing meccas. Maybe that's what it comes down to.
I think public land access in general, we might argue about other things in Montana, but that's always been a real strong, mutual opinion of just about everyone here, is that we've got these access to tremendous public waters and lands. And everyone has come together with that in my lifetime in Montana. And we're seeing as we've seen an influx of, wealthier landowners, the tide may be turning. And fortunately, we do have that law in the books now. It would have been more difficult to implement nowadays, but that's something that's just always been the attitude in Montana. And, it's the reason that a lot of people are here. And it's, one of the great things we offer.
Yeah, that is really cool. What's so Dylan? Let's just keep on a little bit of the track of the background of the geography and stuff. So Dylan, how has that changed? Have you been there a long time? Have you seen some pretty big changes over the years there as far as population or other things?
Dylan, we're just far enough out of the way. We're about an hour from the nearest airport in Butte. We really haven't seen the population influx that other portions of Montana, some of the bigger cities, are getting right now. Somewhat shocking to go to Missoula and Bozeman and watch the continued growth. We're getting a little bit in Dillon, but it's not that much different than the town that I first, started spending a lot of time in 30 years ago.
Yeah, so that's cool too. So you have this town that hasn't changed very much over the years. And what is just roughly populate? What's the size of the town?
The city of Dillon's about 6,000, give or take a little bit. There's a small university here, Western Montana University, and it has about 2,000 students, which provides a kind of, it really makes the town, having that small college in town, and the atmosphere, it really makes it a nice place to live.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Western Montana. And then what's the name of the Western what's their mascot?
They're the Bulldogs.
Oh, the Bulldogs. Yeah, they're right. So they're not in the they're not in like Division One, or are they? Who are they?
They're NAIA Division 3.
Yeah.
They compete in what's called the Frontier Conference, which are the smaller schools in Montana, as well as
Yeah, that's right. Nice. Good. Well, I love taking these tangents to get a little background here. So let's bring it back into the shop, and we were talking about a couple of the different rivers there. So again, somebody's putting together a trip out there. What's that look like as far as places to stay? Is there lots of camping? Is that pretty much? Could you do? Are there any like river float trips on any of this stuff, or is it more like you're camping somewhere else and then day fishing?
As far as lodging, there's the whole revolution has really even hit Dillon, Montana, where I think about 5 years ago there were 6 VRBOs, and I think we're upwards of 40 now. It's hard to even keep track of them all. We have folks who even have cabins. We have a number of motels and hotels. There's certainly a lot of camping opportunities within the area as well.
So there's lots of opportunities, and there's a couple. I mean, you're right in like national forest, right? You're kind of surrounded by lots of public land. Is hunting probably just as popular as anywhere out there? Hunting, fishing, both of them equally.
Exactly. Once you get out of Dillon and you travel south or west, there's really you can drive until you hit that.
Yeah, nice. Well, this is going to be good. And if people are coming, I'm just looking again if. You're just, you're right on the tip. I mean, you're kind of right in the middle of it. Again, that's why I always feel like Montana is right in the middle. You got Idaho just below. You got, you're right next to Wyoming with everything there. How far is it down to heading down, like just into the Madison? You said about an hour?
Madison lies east of us about an hour to the town of Ennis.
Okay. Well, let's take it back in. I want to go back into some of the, since we started the Beaverhead, I want to kind of take it back there and talk again about the hatches. So we mentioned the crane fly, just in preparation. It sounds like you guys like the 9.5 foot rod, 6 weight. Is that pretty much standard, or do you have some other rods where you're bringing like a dry fly rod, that sort of thing?
Yeah, if I have 2 rods with Beaverhead, I would have the 9.5 foot 6 weight for streamer fishing and or primarily nymph fishing, as well as a 9 foot 5 weight. Will kind of cover all the other situations you'll come across, whether it be small technical dry fly fishing or throwing more of an attractor, hopper, or crane fly type pattern.
Okay, and then on rod, I know you have the shop there, so you probably have a lot of different manufacturers. Maybe take us into the shop real quick. So for somebody who hasn't been in Frontier Anglers, you walk in the front door. Take us there. What's that look like?
I'd say we're on the large side of a small destination fly shop. We've got a pretty comprehensive tying room. We have everything from clothing to terminal tackle. Hundreds of bins of flies. We're fairly all inclusive. We offer a shuttle service on the Beaverhead River as well. So we're pretty proud of what we have to offer. We don't think we're missing out on too much.
Gotcha. And how's the shuttle service work? So that's just something you guys are running there. If somebody needs a shuttle, you have people that are kind of running that for you?
Exactly. You have, folks will come in and, we're on boat and they stop in, they fill out a sheet, and we'll take care of the shuttle for them.
Today's episode is sponsored by FishHound Expeditions, who puts together remote Alaskan wilderness trips for that bucket list trip of a lifetime. And these aren't your typical lodge-style trips or DIYing it. This is basically floating down the river in remote Alaska with the rainbows, the bears, and all the critters out there, but getting the luxurious comforts of camping with tents and cots and good food and all that stuff. We've had Adam on in a number of episodes here, and actually just give away a big trip this year up to Alaska. So he's been doing some good stuff. Adam and the crew have done a great job. We were on a trip with them down on this remote section. We had the Northern Lights one night. We had beautiful floating down the river. We had whitewater, good food, big campfires, you name it. Got some nice big rainbows, got some coho. It was just an epic all-around trip, and it definitely was a trip of a lifetime. You can head over right now if you want to check this out, wetflyswing.com/fishhound, and check in with Adam and pick his brain to see what kind of trips they have on the list. I know they're filling up quick, so if you want to get in there for this next year, check out FishHound, FishHound, to connect with Adam and the crew over at FishHound. And you support this podcast by clicking through that link and checking in with the crew. Okay, back to the show. So at the shop, so you can type, like, when you go in there, do you guys do if people want to do like the classes, do you guys do the fly tying stuff, or is it more just get the gear, the materials?
Yeah, we mentioned COVID kind of slowed us down. We had big plans to do a couple nights a week a tying course, and we're going to maybe ramp that back up in January this year and offer an introductory fly tying course as well as maybe another night for maybe folks who are a little more advanced and just want to reach out and
Okay. The fly shop, we've heard this before too about, folks that buy or own fly shops and they kind of get stuck a little bit sometimes, in the shop, or they feel like that. Do you feel like sometimes you're stuck in the shop, or are you kind of getting out quite a bit still on the water?
I actually am lucky that I've got a great shop manager, Steve Wilson. Steve is in the shop more than I am. I'm 52 years old, and I really prefer to be on the river more. I'm in there some. I'll probably be in there as time goes on, but I know the phenomena you're speaking of, and I've guys that just shop and they grew a little bitter. I'm trying to keep the right blend to keep myself happy and keep myself in tune with what's going on the river, and yet still try to make sure that the shop is running smoothly. That's right. So you mix a little, and of course, Steve Wilson. Yeah, he's. I'll put a link in the show notes to that episode we did. And Steve came from over. What was the place before he worked there? Where was he at? Steve was with Sweetwater Fly Shop over in Livingston prior to coming here to Frontier Anglers. That's right. Over in Livingston. That's we had an episode with Steve, and we dug into some of what they have going there, which is pretty unique. So that's good. So you picked up Steve, and now Steve, he is at Frontier. Talk about him. What's his focus? Is he doing a little bit of everything? Yeah, Steve, not only coordinating my other employees, everything tied together as I'm on the water quite a bit still, and we're as a team, and we're real fortunate to come across Steve and have him with me. God, that is really great. Yeah, so you've picked up somebody who's got a ton of experience, and do you feel like you could just, with Steve, kind of, it's one of those things, right? Could you leave the shop for like a month or two and just be gone and be like, all right, Steve, is it at that point where he's just going to take care of things? Yeah, someday, hopefully, that the fantasy of leaving for a month or two could happen. But I was gone last week, actually, hunting. And so I don't have the slightest worry that things aren't in good hands when Steve's there. God, that's really great. Yeah, it's a good feeling to have that. So hunting wise, let's go down this track just for a sec. Where were you? Is this like deer, elk? Yes, I was actually elk hunt over in south of Bozeman on the Flying D Ranch. Oh, no kidding. Yeah, Flying D. There you go. How was that? Is elk numbers pretty good out there? Yeah. It's one of the premier places really to go elk hunting out west. I was fortunate enough to be there for about 15 years doing it, and it's really a pretty amazing place. Oh, man. And is this like bow hunting or rifle? This was during the rifle season. Yeah, rifle. Gotcha.
Nice. So so you've got a little bit of hunting. What else? So let's just circle around on you. So you've got the hunting. Basically, it's hunting season now, obviously. So I know I have Tyler. Shout out to Tyler. He's out just north of you there, and I know he's spending like the next 10 days out his camp. It seems like that's the place, right? people you think it's like equal hunting, fishing out there? Is that what it feels, or is it still a little more fisherman? What's your take there?
Southwest Montana, for where we're at for a long time, has had some of the largest elk populations out west. And so we get a tremendous, it's part of our culture here that virtually everybody hunts. And it's a big draw for people, not only residents elsewhere in Montana, but from out of state to come here as well.
Yeah, gosh. So it is. And out of state, is that pretty, if somebody wanted to get an out of state license tag, that seems to be pretty doable. I know in some areas it's hard to even get an elk tag, right? Or even sometimes a deer tag. Is it pretty, because it's Montana, it's still lots of animals around?
Yeah, Montana's great. We've got some of the best habitat in North America, and it's been managed well for a long time. And, actually compared to even when I was a kid, there's a lot more elk now than there was then.
Oh, wow. That's a good thing. And that is, how do you attribute that to what just natural fluctuations, or what's going on there?
No one knows for sure, but somewhere around 1993, the elk numbers weren't that high, and there were a lot of mule deer. There was in the winter of '93, the mule deer population was hit pretty hard by winter kill. And from that point on, elk numbers just really exploded in this part of Montana and have remained at levels that they'd actually like to have a few less elk out there, to be honest with you. The numbers are above. Yeah.
Holy cow. So if somebody wanted to get an elk tag from out of state, is that pretty doable, or what? Are people coming in? Is that pretty common? People are coming in from out of state?
Yeah, what you need to do is, I believe the deadline is usually March 15th. They need to apply with the Fishwife and Parks. And, they're typically, some people don't, but I think the odds are better than not. You'll get a tag. You may not get them 2 consecutive years, or you may not get it the first year. But if you apply for 2 years, you're very likely to get one.
Okay, so there you go. So get that, and then you're actually out there. Is it the Flying D Ranch? You're out there, kind of basically guiding on hunts as well.
Yeah, I have done that for quite some time. I'm kind of reaching the end of my career on doing that. In fact, last week was my last hunt there. It's been a great chapter in my life. Elk out west and meet some great people, and the ranch itself, you'll probably spawn than you would driving around Yellowstone Park for sure.
How does that look when you look at hunting, guiding for hunting versus guiding for fishing? Is it just very similar or very different? Describe the difference between the two for you.
I think the two, where they coincide is you're always trying to manage expectations and personalities, whether you can't control how the fish are biting or where the elk are going to be standing. But you can certainly try to keep your client in a positive state of mind and with a positive attitude. And that translates to success, I think, both fishing and or hunting.
Okay. And when you're coming in for the fishing trip, say I'm coming in there, next in the summertime or getting ready before the trip, what are you telling me to manage my expectations on the trip, or how does that look?
There's, we're pretty fortunate to have some pretty consistent fishing here. But things happen, let's say hypothetically, you've got one day, and on that day, they decided they're going to raise the level of the water out of the dam, and you may have some great fishing for a while, and then it might slow it down. So there's a variety of factors you can't control. At Frontier Anglers, we try to just control what we can. We provide our own lunches. We make in-house at the shop. We have, reputable, quality, experienced, knowledgeable guides. And, so we're always going to control what we can. We sometimes can't control the hand that Mother Nature deals us, but, certainly the vast majority of the time, there's tremendous opportunity to have a good
deal. Yeah. And are you guys on these float trips, if you're doing like a day trip, are you guys stopping, kind of breaking for a lunch, hopping out on a gravel bar, what's that look like for lunch? Just takes it that a little bit.
Yeah, the beach, is a river where we do a lot of float fishing, but there's certainly a tremendous amount of opportunity, and we'll taper to the preference of our clients. But there's a tremendous opportunity to, if you wanted to, you could spend half the day out of the boat fishing, wade fishing, as well as float fishing. And we get folks' preferences go either way, and we just taper it to what they'd like to do. But we'll typically, the Beaverhead doesn't have a wide floodplain, so we'll usually eat a really good lunch in the boat and take off fishing again from there.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I say that because it's kind of funny. We had Henry Winkler on, the Fawns back in a while back earlier this year. And we were talking about, he floats, I think, around a river south of you. And we were talking about the experience there. And he was saying he loves everything. But when they come to lunchtime, he doesn't even want to stop and eat lunch. He just wants to be like, you know what? I don't want to stop fishing. And he almost gets a little angry, right? So there's probably some people that don't even need to eat. Do you guys probably see that sometimes too, where you just kind of keep fishing, maybe take a shorter break there?
Everything from the guy who will eat a sandwich in about 35 seconds and jump out of the boat and start casting to folks who would actually prefer to have a table set up and take their own sweet time. And you've almost got to tell them that lunch is over and we need to start fishing again, and everything in between. So I've experienced people on all ends of it.
That's it. And then back into the hunting. So managing expectations, what are you telling an elk hunter who's coming in for the first time for elk?
Fortunately, the opportunities there where I guided on the Flying D were, numerous. You're not going to really see more bull elk than in, any place. You might see more bull elk in a day hunting there than you would in 2 seasons on public land. So they'd manage the elk there. It's a large ranch of about 120,000 acres. And so they had the elk stay there generally all 4 seasons of the year. They don't migrate in or out. And so we primarily are just harvesting mature bulls there, which, their elk are kind of in the sunset of their life, 9-10 years old. And it's pretty amazing to see, to watch something that's been managed that well. And they're behaving like elk do, just like they were an unhunted population almost.
Oh, wow. Wow. So you're talking, you never say easy, any of this stuff's easy, but this would be literally, you're with the guy, you're out there, where the animals are. How easy is it for somebody who can shoot straight to get an animal out there on these trips?
Yeah, they're going to get an opportunity. There's no guarantees. Certainly things can go wrong, but they're going to get an opportunity for sure.
Yeah, they're going to get a shot. And that's a huge thing because, and I'm not sure what costs are for doing that, but there's some of these areas where you can go out elk hunting and might not see an elk, for not only a year, but years. That's a big struggle. So if you really want to get one, it sounds like the Flying D might be a good place if you really want to get that elk to check in with them.
Yeah, if it's one of your life ambitions to kill a mature bull elk, that's one of the better places there are.
Perfect. All right. Well, I think we've gone off on the hunting. I always love chatting a little about the hunting, and I hope to get out to Montana and do some of that as well. But taking it back to the rivers, you guys are going to be there. I guess we're kind of, like we said, going into November now. But next summer, you guys are going to be full service open. Between now and then, do you guys have some trips coming up that you're going to be heading out, like hosted style trips?
Yeah, we do. I'm actually. We're hosting 3 trips to Boutique Lodge on Ambergris Cay and Belize for the first 3 weeks of March through the shop. And we're working on some folks to put together a trip to the Bahamas as well in February.
Oh, in Feb. Yep. Perfect. Yeah, so February. So if somebody wanted to get involved in either those trips or others, just check in with you there, give you a call at the shop.
Yeah, exactly. And, we're doing some stuff in Argentina, as I mentioned. I've spent a lot of time there. So yeah, we'll ultimately expand upon that in the future.
Gotcha.
Steve, my shop manager, his background also, it was in the travel business. And so between the two of us, we can provide a lot of, expertise and having been there knowledge.
That's right. Yeah. Steve is definitely a great resource on that too. So are you guys going to be expanding that as you go, trying to do more? Is there some limit to the programs that you guys will be doing, or how does that look?
Not really. We hope to just continue to build that over time. We have another trip going to the Illusion Peninsula for king salmon in July of next year as well. So we're just branching out, and Steve and I haven't fished around the world quite a bit. We have some places that we can promote to people, and they trust us, and people seem to be enjoying it, and we hope on that going forward.
Perfect. All right. Well, and I'm assuming that Illusion, that's going to be like swinging. Is that like swinging for kings up there?
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of, I narrowed it down to that's maybe the best place to go swing for king salmon in Alaska. And we were fortunate to get a week there and looking real forward to it.
Oh, wow.
Those things are powerhouse. And it's absolutely in the middle of nowhere, well down the Illusion Peninsula on the Seine, which may be better known as a steelhead river and one of the more consistent steelhead rivers left on the planet. But we'll be there during king season, and I hope to see them again one of the next few Septembers for some steelhead as well.
Oh, right. And when's the time? So what's the best time for the swinging for Chinook down there?
Typically it's from, going to be somewhere in the 20th of June to the 1st of July. Anadromous fish being an anadromous fish, there's a hard line on that, but in that proximity or a week before or a week after.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're talking about doing the same thing next year, probably early July, trying to get up and hit not only kings but everything up a little further north, quite a bit. But it's Alaska, right? So it's a diversity. You guys probably have a shot to get other fish. I mean, when you go out on a trip like that, are you thinking kings is the sole focus?
It's the primary focus of the operation. There is on the kings, and you're catching them relatively close to the salt. They're chrome bright. They're just absolutely powerful. I came across the place and talked to Dave Himes, who's here in Helena, and booked it. And that was the primary objective of my client, who is bringing his group along on the trip, and I'll be hosting. And so looking real forward to it. It's it's a ways out here still, but as we get closer, I'm going to start to get even more into it.
Perfect. All right, Shaun. Well, I'm going to let everybody get out of here. We're going to send everybody out to frontieranglers.com if they want to connect with you on a trip here and some stuff you have going. And thanks for doing a little primer on the area. I think definitely I know what to expect a little bit about on the Beaverhead and some of those waters. And hopefully we can get up there and connect with you here in the next couple years or so. So thanks for all your time today.
We'd love to have you, Dave. For sure, make it our way.
So there you are. wetflyswing.com/385. 385, we are 15 episodes away from the big 40, which is going to be amazing. 400 episodes. I can't even do the math anymore. It's been awesome. I appreciate you for if you're brand new today or if you've been a long-time listener, I appreciate the listens and appreciate the support. Quick reminder before we get out of here, I mentioned this at the start, we've got an account manager position right now that's open. And so if you know somebody who is interested in engaging our sponsors, the community, everything we have going, and also has experience in event planning and might want to go on a few of these trips we have going in 2023 and beyond, this is the trip for you, for them. We've got some good stuff going, so excited to share this. We need some more help here at Team Swing, so we're looking for somebody right now. wetflyswing.com/manager will get you the full scoop on that, and you could apply right there on that page, and it'll get you going. All right, and I'd love to hear from you. If you are interested in getting out on one of those trips coming up here, or just want to connect with me, you can send me a message, dave@wetflyswing.com, or on social media anytime. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to put together an episode for you. The more emails I get, the more connections, the more chance I have to direct this podcast and make it a fit perfectly for you. All right. Thanks for all your support. Thanks again for checking in today. And I hope you have a great evening, a great morning, or great afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And I really want to see you on that next episode. All right. Have a good day.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com.